doesn't the world feel like it's crazy right now? I don't know, maybe it's just me, but there is just so many things going on. I keep thinking, what can we do to help our kids accept change and tolerate, or maybe that's more for me, tolerate uncertainty. What neuroscience teaches us about the brain, though, is if there's too much stress, then resilience and growth cannot happen. So how do we get through this time of change and uncertainty without too much emotional damage? I ended up asking some questions to Dr. Mallory Yee with the Childhood Collective about this topic, as well as they gave me so many amazing resources and tips for the post on what to do when deciding to send your kids back to school. And then also I read some books, listened to some podcasts, and came up with 11 ways that we can help our kids to accept change and tolerate uncertainty. And I think these things will help us as parents as well. Here's the first one. It's a big one. We need to unpack our own feelings first. Hands down, we need to figure out how we feel about all of this and then not put that all on our kids, especially if we're extremely worried or anxious or upset. I needed something for myself, so I ended up making an emergency emotions toolbox that is a printable. You can print out, you can grab in any of the links below or in this post, and just get your feelings out. There's also some things and ways to emotion coach your child as well. Okay, so the second way to help our kids accept change and tolerate uncertainty without too much emotional turmoil or stress is to have essential conversations. And this has been recommended by many experts, but to have these conversations with your kids every day, aim for about 10 minutes. If you have kids that don't want to sit and talk to you, I have one who's entering into the pre-teenish age, and he's also a male. He and I will talk over at bedtime or while we have focus time, which is our one-on-one quality time together. It could be over playing cards or catch or something like that. But just give your children the opportunity to be able to have these conversations and share with you what's on their mind. Remember to keep their age, their temperament, their personality, all of the above in mind whenever you're having these conversations with them. Some kids might be able to handle more than others, and just meet them where they are. Number 3, have empathy and acknowledge your child's feelings. This is my number 1 piece of advice for any parent in any situation. Instead of jumping to conclusions or filling in what you think your kids are feeling, or you don't really think it's that big of a deal that they don't get to play sports or whatever it may be, empathize. A tip that I heard on a podcast, I can't remember who it was from, but she had written a book, maybe I'll go digging for that, was to change your buts into because whenever you're empathizing. I loved this so much. So what that means is, instead of saying, a lot of times parents are really good with empathizing by saying, I know you don't want to get your shoes on right now, but we have to get in the car. Or, I know that you're really bummed that you can't play sports right now, but none of your friends can play either. Everything's shut down. So instead, change that but into because. So for example, with the sports one, you could say, I know you're super bummed you can't play baseball this fall because you really were loving the sport. You loved when we came and cheered you on. You loved being part of the team. So how about we throw balls, play catch in the backyard? That sounds and feels so much better than putting that but in there. It makes it seem like, okay, you kind of get me, but you don't. Whereas if you say because, then the child can really feel like you understand where they're coming from, even though you might think it's silly or whatever. Number 4 is to realize that some days may be really good and some days may not be. So Dr. Mallory Yee of the Childhood Collective said it's kind of like a pendulum. You know, imagine the pendulum swinging from one side to another. So instead of actual stages where they go through, Times are going to feel good, times are not going to feel great. So just got to meet your child where they are. So then number 5 is to help kids develop practical acceptance. This one, in this day and age, I feel like we don't ever want our kids to experience anything but happiness and joy and rainbows and unicorns and butterflies. But then they think that that's how life should be and that's how life always is. Instead, what we need to do is help them practically accept the change and the uncertainty in a healthy emotional way. Number 6 is watch out for rumination. No. This is something I have to watch for myself because I have OCD. So what rumination is, if you've never heard of that term before, is thinking the same thoughts. You're just getting in this pattern of thoughts, and they're usually not very good. And they can be dark or worry feelings. So Dr. Mallory of the Childhood Collective, she recommended a book. It was called What to Do When You Worry Too Much. And it teaches kids about worry time, where you set aside a time every day where you get all your worries out and then you don't revisit them and you don't think about them again. Because there's a lot going on right now, at least in our state. Our kids aren't able to go back to school, so they could really worry about that. They can worry about what they hear at the dinner table, what they see on TV, what they see if they have a phone. And so we really need to watch out for too much worry and excessive thoughts surrounding these kind of topics of change and uncertainty. Number 7 is coach your child through difficult situations. I am a huge advocate for becoming your child's emotion coach. What that means is you understand that emotions exist and you help your child with those emotions versus telling them to stop it or you'll be okay or get over it, because our nervous systems can't do that. And then that causes more stress. And remember, when there's more stress, then resilience and growth cannot happen. So another thing that to be cognizant about is to don't just automatically think our kids want us to solve their problems. Instead, let's ask them, do you want me to help solve this problem, or are you just venting? I mean, don't you ever feel that way sometimes? You just want to vent and get things out, and then someone's trying to solve it, and you're like, I wasn't telling you for me to solve it. Our kids do the same thing. So we just need to coach and guide them through their emotions, through their feelings, and help them get through all this change and uncertainty. Number 8 is my favorite. It is to encourage play, even with older kiddos. Now, things like this are kind of taking the place of play. And so if anyone knows me, knows that I'm not a huge fan of video games and cell phones and all of those for kids. And the reason why is because whenever they're on devices and they're being entertained all day long, they're not engaging in the really good, juicy stuff for their brains. And play is one of them. So encourage just free range play. You can get on the floor with your child and just sit with them and observe what they are doing. Don't coach them or tell them how to play, but just see where their imagination takes them and where it takes you. And also through play, I mean, that's how especially little kids make sense of their world. So they may bring up things that what they're seeing with all this change and uncertainty. Just meet them where they are and let them engage and discover a whole new world. Number 9 is having consistent routines. I'm a huge fan of routines. I know that the research tells us, it's evidence-based proof that routines help kids feel safe, because then they have predictability to their day. So right now, even though you may not be able to control what their school schedule looks like, you may not be able to control if you can go places, you can set up some kind of routine in the house. I do have some awesome summer routine charts, some morning routine charts, evening routine charts that I'll put the links below this video. And I'm going to make some for just the normal school day too. There's checklists, routines, because I think they just help everyone. And maybe because I'm type A, but also I know even with people aren't, they help them too. The last one is number 11, and it's to give hope. Even if it feels like we can't do anything, there's always something, even if it's the smallest thing ever, that we can do. That could be adopt a new gratitude practice, handing waters out to it's so hot here in Arizona, to the homeless people sitting on the corner. Any little change that you can do, or a big change, go down to the governor's office and tell them what you think. No, I don't know. Or you can make a bigger change. Write your senator, write your governor, and don't just sit back and say, oh, well, this is what we have to do. Figure out what steps you need to take in order to make a bigger change. And then teach your kids how to do the same thing and ask them what's important to them. Giving hope is huge. And what we do in our family too is we pray, because we know who is sovereign over all of this and who's in control. So we just pray for the people that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, making the big decisions. And we pray that, God will rescue us in the end from all this crazy change and uncertainty. I hope I'm giving you hope, and I have hope that we can get through this all together and come out on the other side of this as just more resilient, compassionate, kind, amazing human beings.